Today we'll be talking to three people. The first person we're going to be talking to is Jim Ritchie-Dunham. He's the president of the Institute for Strategic Clarity. Second is Claudia Goncalves. She's served in international positions in 10 countries. And our third guest is Anabel Membrillo, who works as a collaborative partner with a wide variety of organizations, exploring how to design organizations and change processes. So Claudia, who has been a CEO, will be talking about how she's used the vibrancy framework within her organization and the value it brought. What results did you get?
Hello, Maureen. As a CEO, you know that what we are looking for, it's the concrete and tangible results. When I saw vibrancy for the first time, I said, oh my God, I'm not the only one who thinks that is really the way of better results. And I understand that there is a survey that can give me the measurement, the tangible measurement of the evolution of a transitional journey. For me, it was really interesting to have concrete measures of where we are as a company and what kind of evolution we can propose based on that to reach the new stage in the company and measure that transformational process. Never ever before I was able to prove the results of a transformational process. And that was the first time that I found concrete tools to really measure the impact of a transformation.
What people may be more familiar with is some of the Gallup engagement surveys. I've heard people say, it's nice that people are happy, but what I really need to do is deliver returns to our shareholders. And if it doesn't do that, I don't know that I get to be nice. I have to deliver returns. So what did you do that both increased vibrancy and drove bottom line results?
My thinking about what you said is a bit different because I have live case studies where we have better results than we expected by increasing the vibrancy. This term vibrancy may sound unfamiliar in the organizational and corporate environment, but this vibrancy is increasing the capacity of each of the members of the organization to deliver their best. So if I'm working with more of the potential of each of the persons in the organization, I will achieve a much better result.
Having studied with Jim also, what I've learned is focus on underlying agreements. So I deliver more vibrancy by changing the agreements we have within the organization. So why don't we shift to Anabel and tell us how you moved to identify the agreements that were impacting vibrancy and results?
In the beginning, we only applied the survey to the CEOs and the directors and the board. But the second year, we applied the survey to the whole company. And that gave us a really big surprise. Inside the company, we already have a living example of extraordinary result. So for that specific group, around 50 people, they were having a really nice set of agreements that allows them to be extraordinary in the way they were like having the outcomes that the bank was asking for. But they also had that set of agreements that allows them to be taking care of people and how people was behaving and communicating and in all those set of different agreements that makes you design the change management process. So that was one of the biggest things for me, that big surprise that we find out that we already have a really big group with a different set of agreements. So that was the second year, and the last year we also applied the whole survey to the group to be looking at how those agreements were changing during time and to be like asking ourselves the underlying assumptions and how to redesign the next step for the group.
So what I hear is a few different approaches. We would want to know what is the final outcome. I heard a lot more measurement than I have experienced on some engagements, especially engagements that deal with kind of the quote soft stuff. and that the measurement also included measurement for profitability and changes. And I'm assuming that, Ana Claudia, you had to report that on a regular basis.
I can share some detailed information. For instance, with the knowledge sharing, we improved from one person have one subject matter expert to 4 years after they have 4 subject matter where they are experts. And that have a huge impact in the bottom line because we can have more work, we can solve more problems with the same team, we can do a much better program of backup and definitely a capacity of delivering much more flexible.
Succession planning, risk management, having more than one person manages risk in a way that is required to run a successful organization. Jim, if you would talk to us a little bit about what is vibrancy, what is it, and why does it matter? This is your life's work, so this must be really important stuff.
Great to be with you, Maureen. The question that we're asking is, when we find groups, individuals that are doing what we seem to think as extraordinary results and experiences, what are they doing? And this is a question that a lot of us have been asking for a long time. We pair that up with the surveys, like the Gallup study that shows that most people are unengaged or actively disengaged in their communities or organizations globally. And as we started to find groups that were doing what we thought was extraordinary, what is it that differentiates these groups? So to do that, we created a survey to say, what is it that people are doing when they say, I'm really energized by when I'm in this community. I love being here. And we get just these amazing results. I said, cool, well, how long have you been doing that? Well, about 20 years. What is it that people are doing that are getting such great results? So we designed this survey to see if we could differentiate between people's experiences of groups that were really awful to really great. And what is it that differentiated them? This is a survey that now has over 2,700 responses, 94 countries, big organizations to very small, communities, government, business, civil society networks. So a wide variety. And what we're finding is this thing we call a good vibe, a vibrancy. It's a term that at first sounds very fluffy, new agey, but it's a term that comes out of people describing the difference between when I feel really energized in a group and when I don't. I have to medicate myself after being with you people is a low vibrancy experience. We saw a recent medal that people were handing out to each other. I survived another meeting that should have been an email. Highly disengaged, and I really don't want to be here. I don't even know I'm in this meeting. I'm only here because somebody put it on my calendar. To people saying, I'm really stepping into my potential and learning every day, and I love being here, and I always bring my best. So what we're finding is that people prefer to be highly engaged and to be able to make their unique contributions and bring the best ideas that they can and getting to play in that kind of way. And then it's not a surprise when we do our research and the statistical analysis to say that places where people, as Ana Claudia described earlier, that are highly energized, highly engaged, bringing the best that they can, learning all day long, deliver much better results. So even just from a basic leadership perspective, I'm paying for these folks to be here, and I'm not getting anything out of them. Or they're actively disengaged and terrorizing my company. Or they're here, and they're highly engaged in bringing the best that they can because they deeply care about what we're doing and really supporting each other in them. So what we found in all of that work is the difference is in these agreements that we have and starting to see why is it that we're in this group that really is quite awful, but over here we're in a group that's pretty good or great. And to say, well, it's because they have different agreements. So while you can get very sophisticated in the consultancy and the strategy of what the agreements are, what we're finding is most of the time it's just a very basic question of, are you liking the experience you're having? And be like, no. Ask other people in your group, are they liking it? And they'll often say no. Say, well, could we choose different agreements? Say, well, we actually could choose different agreements because we make them up. And this is where we come to, as you said earlier, vibrancy is a choice. If we choose to live a different way, then let's ask each other, well, what would we like our agreements to be? And do we have experiences of what they could look like? And so the survey is an instrument that we have that's available online for free at the Institute to support you in seeing, well, where are we in our agreements? And what agreements could we choose to have a different experience and then achieve these kinds of outcomes that Anabel and Ana Claudia were talking about?
So we've been talking a lot about agreements. Can you give us a couple of concrete examples? What do I agree to when I go to work other than I show up and you pay me?
Excellent. One is, does our agreement say that I am a cog in the wheel, a cog in the machine of this place, and I'm infinitely replaceable by anybody? And so if that's true, then our agreement is that my voice isn't invited. I'm here to do my job because of the capacities that I bring. And so in many communities like that, we sign a contract. And I love that word, to contract somebody, to say, of all the things that you are, what I really want, Maureen, is just your capacity to do this one thing. And if you start bringing anything else, leave that at the door because we're not interested. And that's an agreement that we're making when we bring you in for a specific thing that you're doing, and I don't want to know any of the rest of this stuff, and you're infinitely replaceable at any moment by anybody else. And that tends to be in what we're calling these low vibrancy groups, right? It's just not very engaging to be brought in that way. And people are marathon runners and can do this for very long periods of time. It's shocking that humans can do that. But it's not a very engaging, energizing place. And people that do that tend to have to medicate by running or getting a cup of coffee or going for a beer or doing something other than that afterwards. In contrast to that, we find groups that are really inviting, says, I want you to bring the best of who you are. That's why it's exciting to have you in our community. And what is it that you're learning about yourself as you're doing this so that you can bring ever more of who you are? I mean, that's why you're here, because you're just an amazing individual to have in our community. And I want to know what you're seeing and learning and being of who you are to bring the best. So I invite your unique contribution, and therefore I expect your best contribution. And so in those communities that we're finding that we're labeling these high vibrancy groups where people describe it that way and very energizing, they don't talk about contracts, they talk about invitations. I'm inviting the best of you. But our declaration, our statement to each other is, because I'm inviting the best of you, then 100% participation is required. Because you're really good at what you do and I need you to be there, so you have to participate. So shifting from a contract where people are in meetings that they don't even know why they're there to saying you're invited to participate, and therefore almost 100% participation is required because you're the one that brings that voice. So shifting from contracts to invitations, shifting from I have to compensate you. Don't you love that compensation? I have to compensate you for being here and giving of your flesh and blood to be here, versus in a growth conversation about what is the value you bring and what is the value we bring to you for your unique contribution. And those are examples of very specific organizations. I'm thinking an accounting firm and a textile mill. So we're not talking about things that would be lovely if they existed. These are real companies doing that on a daily basis.
So I use this methodology with one of my clients, and one of the things I really like is the differentiation between the 3 levels of vibrancy. So in the highest vibrancy level, my client was able to see the possibilities of what he was creating, and this client had amazing vision. The next level is, with that vision, what do I need to develop in my people and my organization to make that possible? And then the third level is the outcomes. And it was interesting to look at the group. We had some people who could meet him in the place of possibility, and other people, they didn't know how we were going to get there, but they trusted him. And then going through this very structured process of, if this is our vision, what do we need to do to get there? And what agreements do we need to have in place to do that? And then third, delivering results. And the feeling of, I'm a trusted member of this team and what I bring is important is so different, at least to me, from clients where I'm just saying, tell me what to do because it doesn't matter what I think. So what is it that we can do from a business perspective to drive economic value, and from a human perspective to create environments where people love the work they do and they go home feeling energized? They're better parents, they're better spouses, they're better partners, they're better community members. All of these things because of building this capacity to form agreements. So let's go back to Ana Claudia and tell us a little bit more about the experience. What happened? What kind of results were you getting?
The previous example that I was telling you, we thought we had to have a structured and strong backup program. We need sharing, knowledge sharing. We didn't have that kind of culture of knowledge sharing. And to do so, we opened the space to the people in the organization to share whatever kind of gifts they have, related or not with the business. We did the invitation and nothing happened. During the first 6 months, because people are not used to be treated as a person, a complete person. But after 6 months, people come with a lot of ideas. And some of them were preparing a diploma course in association with the university and with a specific subject matter related with the business. Some other ideas is partnering with some providers to build up an event, a day focused on technology and searching for new technologies and ways to apply that. And that gave them the possibility to learn how to share. That sharing for the organization is fundamental because with that kind of practice of sharing knowledge, we could have this leap from the knowledge of one subject to the profound knowledge of 4 subjects. It's a very concrete measure of changing agreements because never ever people were invited to bring up their initiative. And that have a bottom line result. In 3 years, we have a bottom line result of approximately 20% of our yearly budget. So it's significant. What we do know is then people are more happy, they are more productive, they can deliver more of themselves, and the quality is much better. It's very clear when we think as I'm economist and as a CEO or executive, we're paying a salary and we are having the 20% of the potential of that individual. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Maybe Anabel can also talk about that experience.
Well, there's 2 things I want to talk about the experience. One is one of the examples that Ana Claudia was talking about that for me was the perfect example of out-of-the-box thinking. That was this small group building up a really full program with an university and teaching that to the inside workers and for the partners and for the client. So that was something that happened, and that helps to bring up individual results and make better relationships with the client and with the other providers. So that was like a huge example of what can happen with this kind of design. And the second thing is this kind of process helps you to have a really good assessment and to be changing the design, adapting the design depending on where is the people and where is the organization and what the organization is ready to go into the next step. In this example with the bank, we did that in the very first part of the process, but at the end of the process, we were doing very interesting things about people expanding their learning capabilities. So they were already into the sharing and they were already into learning how to share with others how they knew and the knowledge and capabilities and skills. So in a second phase, we were doing programs to help them to realize that they could be learning even more than they could imagine. And that was another great experience, a beautiful experience, and how to look at people doing that. Because I have like tons of examples of individuals that really expand the capabilities of how they do that.
So it sounds like in your examples, people are moving from 20% productivity to significantly higher, and that the organization in leveraging their skills created more profitability, smarter people, all which are driving flexibility. So we take the survey, we look at agreements, and we also map where am I losing financial return and human potential with regard to each of these agreements. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We had a chance not only to do the survey and the agreements map, but we measured the cost of scarcity in the beginning and the cost of scarcity at the end. And the difference is the real impact of that transformation. So for executive perspective, it's much more powerful to have a really scientific and proved and serious study that can tell you how much was the impact of a transformational process, it's much stronger to have that kind of proof, concrete measurement, than I have the feeling that was good. That's one of the reasons why I think this framework makes a lot of sense nowadays, is having concrete tools to measure, to assess the impact of a transformational process.
And the tools also, I'm assuming, directed where you invested your energies. I do the mapping. It tells me the highest return is here. So you are going to focus on those, obviously, right? You're not going to focus on the stuff that doesn't matter. And the reason I bring that up, though, is we don't always have such a clear map on where to focus. We know there's something broken. We know that something's wrong. And then we tell people to go figure it out, and they decide to have pizza lunches. Well, that doesn't really fix the engagement problem. It makes them not hungry for pizza on Wednesdays. And having been in organizations that were vibrant and those that weren't, there's a real difference. If you just take a minute and think about where were the places you worked where you were most productive and most excited, and where were the places you couldn't wait to get out. So how do we create these places that are more vibrant? And then the tools that underlie those are, what agreements are we making? There are such a broad range of things that we do, levers that we pull in essence, in running organizations. And this agreements map really helps us look at what are those levers, and they're not always what we would intuitively think, which is why we haven't fixed them. Jim has suggested that you can take the assessment for free, and we strongly encourage you to do that. And think about then, what is your next step in how do you frame your agreements within your organization or within your family? And what one agreement might you change to help you be more effective? Thank you again to Jim, Anabel, and Claudia for sharing your experiences and wisdom with us.